Every damn time.
その呼び方はやめてくれないか。
坊ちゃまがご結婚なさった暁には。
Okay, we need to talk about that.
Because that wasn't a servant addressing her master. That was a parent controlling her child.
And Ferdinand, the high priest who terrifies everyone, just runs away to get hair products. Like, actually flees the scene rather than assert authority over his own attendant.
Which raises our question for today. When Rihyarda calls Ferdinand Young Master, and he can't stop her, who really holds power in Ehrenfest's nobility? So this episode moves Rosamine into the Archduke's castle, where she meets her new attendants, most notably Rihyarda, who served as wet nurse to both Sylvester and apparently has some deep history with Ferdinand. We get the formal family dinner where only baptized children can attend, leaving Rosamine to eat alone. And Sylvester explains Brigitte's tragic backstory, how her engagement was broken and she was harassed by other nobles.
This isn't really about Rosamine adapting to castle life. It's about her witnessing the cracks in noble society. She sees Ferdinand rendered powerless. She experiences family dinners that aren't actually family gatherings.
And she learns that even being under the Archduke's protection doesn't shield you from noble cruelty. Brigitte's story proves that.
Actually, before we dive in, last episode I predicted Rosamine would successfully adapt to noble society by focusing on practical achievements. After watching this, I was half right. She's adapting, but not through achievements. She's adapting by recognizing how broken the system actually is.
Yeah, my prediction about her rejecting noble identity after a deeper crisis. This episode doesn't contradict that. If anything, watching Ferdinand get emotionally manipulated by his caretaker might be exactly the kind of systemic revelation that pushes her toward rejection.
Here's what we're examining today. Rosamine's arc from eager castle newcomer to sobered observer of noble isolation, but specifically through witnessing Ferdinand's vulnerability and those empty family dinners.
And I'd argue the real story isn't Rosamine's adaptation at all. It's the episode revealing that Ehrenfest's nobility is a prison, where titles mean nothing, and everyone, even Ferdinand, is trapped by relationships they can't control. Let's ground this in what actually happens. The pivotal moment comes when Norbert introduces Rihyarda and Ferdinand's entire demeanor shifts. His face goes through this incredible journey. Recognition, then something that looks like dread?
And Rihyarda immediately starts with the formal blessing language, right? On this auspicious day, radiant with the majesty of Leidenschaft, all very proper and respectful.
Until she calls Rosamine princess and then drops the bomb, Young Master Ferdinand. And watch his micro-expressions there. Pure defeat crosses his features before he can compose himself.
Then we get the family dinner scene, where Rosamine sits alone because Melchior and Sylvester's other unbaptized children can't attend. She's processing this realization that noble families don't actually function as families. They're structured by ritual and hierarchy, not affection.
And finally, Sylvester's explanation of what happened to Brigitte. How her engagement was broken, how she was harassed, how even being talented and well-connected couldn't protect her from noble society's cruelty.
二人が君の護衛を務める。
コルネリウス兄様。
よろしく、ローゼマイン。
アンゲリカと申します。よろしくお願いいたします。全然騎士に見えないけど。
この容姿なので、茶会や宴で護衛するのに向いているのだ。
Let's start with Ferdinand's face when Rihyarda first addresses him. The animators are telling us something crucial about power dynamics through these micro-expressions.
Hold on. Before we analyze expressions, can we acknowledge how manipulative this is? Rihyarda's using to control a grown man in front of his colleagues.
The facial animation shows this perfectly. His eyes dart sideways, checking if anyone heard. That's not authority. That's embarrassment.
I see recognition, micro wince, then resignation. Someone who knows they're about to lose a battle they've fought many times before.
When she says, "I will once you've taken a wife," and Ferdinand just gives up, that's not conflict resolution.
But that misses the strategic calculation. Rihyarda demonstrates perfect code switching, formal blessing with Rosamine, then immediate dominance assertion over Ferdinand. She's showing she can operate at any level of the hierarchy.
If Ferdinand can't control his own household staff, what does that say about noble authority more broadly?
That it's mostly performance. The dinner scene proves this. Rosamine sits alone while family members are excluded based on baptism status. These aren't families. They're disguised as kinship.
Most disturbing is Sylvester's explanation of Brigitte's harassment. When he says other nobles tormented her after her broken engagement, he presents it as unfortunate but inevitable, not as something that should be stopped.
I'd push back on that. The system weaponizes marriage and social status against its own members. Brigitte did everything right. Talented, engaged, supported, and noble society still destroyed her prospects. This isn't unfortunate but inevitable. It's deliberately cruel social architecture.
So when Ferdinand can't make his attendant stop calling him Young Master, he's demonstrating that the whole system runs on
元気そうでよかった。すまなかったな。ご心配おかけいたしました。
さあ、姫様、急いで着替えましょう。皆様。
The moment that reframes everything is Sylvester's casual explanation of Brigitte's harassment. Because he's not presenting it as an injustice to be corrected, he's presenting it as the natural consequence of a broken engagement.
And that's when the episode's critique becomes clear. This isn't about individual bad actors. The system itself is designed to be cruel.
Ferdinand being powerless against Rihyarda, the empty family dinners, Brigitte's harassment, these aren't bugs in noble society. They're features. The system operates through emotional manipulation and institutional exclusion.
Which means Rosamine isn't just adapting to castle life. She's getting a masterclass in how nobility functions, as disguised as privilege.
And the genius of the episode is how it shows this through Ferdinand's vulnerability. He's the most competent, intimidating character we've met, and even he can't control his own household relationships. What chance does anyone else have?
All right, predictions. And I'm going on record with something I really hope I'm wrong about. I think Rihyarda is going to publicly undermine Ferdinand in front of other nobles by episode 42. This episode established that she has zero respect for his adult authority, and that kind of dynamic doesn't stay private.
I'd push back on that. I think Ferdinand's going to break free of household constraints by episode 45, but not through confronting Rihyarda, through restructuring his entire living situation. The show is building toward him rejecting the whole system of noble family dynamics.
But can he actually do that? The episode seems to argue that these emotional entanglements are inescapable. Rihyarda raised him. That relationship has 20 years of history behind it.
The only solution is radical separation from these childhood dynamics, rather than negotiating with them. So, to our opening question, who really holds power in Ehrenfest's nobility?
This episode proves it's not the people with titles. It's the people who control the emotional infrastructure. Rihyarda has more practical authority over Ferdinand than Ferdinand has over anyone.
Which makes nobility less like aristocracy and more like elaborate therapy, where everyone's trapped in dysfunctional family dynamics they can't escape. Rosamine thought she was being adopted into privilege. She was actually being institutionalized.
And here's what I'm going to be watching for next episode. Whether Rosamine starts questioning the whole arrangement or doubles down on trying to make it work. Because after witnessing Ferdinand's powerlessness and experiencing that isolated dinner, she has to be wondering what she's actually signed up for. If you want to see whether our predictions about Ferdinand's breaking point actually pay off, hit subscribe. We'll be tracking every moment of noble dysfunction from here to the season finale.